today's podcast, little slightly different setup to normal. So we're just going to go with it and see what happens. I quite like being challenged. So we are still on season 5. This is episode 7. And so far, for a recap for you, if you haven't listened before for any of season 5, we started off talking about Tough Mudder because it's something that I'm doing in September with my son. And then it kind of evolved. So then we were talking about my training and what I was doing for my physical body. And then it went on a little bit more to having the confidence to say yes to things and not comparing ourselves. And it has occurred to me, as we've gone through, that really doing a Tough Mudder has got absolutely nothing to do with my physical body at all. And it's all to do with my mindset. And, you know, like all things, we have to have the right mindset, don't we? So because that's evolved, this podcast season has evolved, which means I get to have guests, and I'm really lucky to have another guest today. So today I am talking with Liz, who is a soul purpose coach. So thank you so much for joining me, Liz. I've been really looking forward to chatting to you today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
So first of all, for me and for everybody listening, what does it involve being a soul purpose coach? What do you do?
Yeah, well, for me, it's soul purpose is really a deepening of my understanding of a life purpose coach. So it's the understanding that we're coming from a place of that we are spiritual beings having an earthly experience. And I believe and witness actually that when we can connect to that deeper part of ourselves, and our clients facilitate that, then we can really, it helps with our self-worth, it helps with us living our true purpose, really. Yeah,
that's fascinating. And it's such a wide subject, isn't it? Like, I know you've kind of brought it into a couple of sentences there for me, but yeah, it's very, very far reaching. And I guess takes us our whole lives to explore our life and what we need to find out about ourselves, and maybe, you know, more than one lifetime.
Absolutely. So I personally believe that we are all connected, that we are part of the unified field, the wholeness, that the, you know, going a bit deep, but the universe experiencing itself. And when we are, you know, incarnated, or we come down to have this earthly experience, we are part of that whole. And yet we also have this unique soul's essence. And this is the part that is really important for us in each, you know, in each lifetime, but in particularly this one, because this is the only one we're living right now.
Yeah.
So really, when we can get in contact with our soul's essence, and we really kind of get a sense of who we are and what we're here to do, then really it gives us greater purpose. But I really also feel that it makes us feel better about ourselves, rather than just this sense of we're just a person who lives and dies, and, you know, what does that matter on some levels, that we are something much greater than that. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but just on a kind of soul level way. And I believe that we have this soul's essence gets expressed throughout our lives in different ways. So just for example, you're not going to be wanting to do the same things in the same way at 40 that you were when you were 14.
Yeah. And
for me, the essence is really, the clues are there all along, usually from childhood. And the more we're in alignment, the more we can see that through line and that thread that weaves through the tapestry of our lives, really, and gives the clues, particularly when we get out of alignment, off center, which happens to us all, right? I mean, you know, that's just the way it is. Yeah. And it kind of, the more we deeply connect with our hearts, the more inner journey we take, the more that is revealed to us. So I also see it as like a, you know, if you think of like a flower, the tight bud of a flower, as it begins to open, it reveals, you know, layers and layers and layers. And the more our life goes on, the more deeper and tighter that bud, and the more that's revealed in that beauty.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and which is really exciting, isn't it? And I mean, I completely relate to what you're saying. I also agree that you know, I feel like we're all energy, we're all connected. And so if I'm learning something and I'm growing, that will help you to learn and to grow, and somebody else to learn and to grow, and it kind of ripples, doesn't it? And I mean, I can relate that directly to this Tough Mudder that I'm doing, which I thought at the beginning was challenging me as a physical person, but actually it's challenging me much, much more than that. But I have already discovered, even though I've not done it yet, that the sense of community, that's the thing that gets the people through. And that's exactly that. It's the energy that people bring. That's what carries everybody through. And that's why at the end of it, everyone feels so amazing and they want to do more. And I can already feel that charged energy before we've got there. And that's exactly, you know, how I can relate to what you're saying, because we are all connected and we can feed off each other. And so, yes, energy is really important.
Oh, totally. And as you're saying that, it's kind of affirming that sense that when we come together with people that are resonating at the same frequency, which you would be if you're all coming together to do this amazing feat, you know, that's both physical and emotional, mental, the whole thing. That you're coming together with like-minded people, they're on that same wavelength of energy, and that's going to only build and build and build. And we know this happens in all areas of life. You know, there've been studies done about meditation. When people come together and meditate together, that's actually shown that crime rates in particular areas have actually gone down.
Yes.
So it's similar, it's that frequency, that wavelength.
Yeah, absolutely. And you were talking about meditation. So I know that from looking at your Instagram that you do sound meditation, which is fascinating. And I actually was having a conversation with someone about it this morning, which I love. I love all the synchronicities of life. So what's the kind of difference between the meditation that I do? I mean, I do actually have a singing bowl, but I would say that I dabbled. I'm not a professional in any stretch of the imagination. But I do meditate every single day, and it's massively important to my life and sort of the person that I am now. So how does that meditation differ from the singing bowl meditation and the sound meditation that you do?
Okay, so sound, I mean, it's so far reaching. There's so many different ways to do sound healing. You know, often it's referred to as sound baths, or sound journeys. And I like sometimes the word bath, because if you think of a bath, you get into it and it fully immerses you. And this is what happens with sound, resonant sound. And this can be done through gongs, singing bowls, crystal singing bowls, your own voice. In fact, your own voice is one of the most healing vibrations when it's in a good resonance. Yes. Than anything, actually. So really, sound healing, sound baths, it's that fully immersive experience where it's penetrating the cells. It's and it's deeply relaxing. What I'm noticing more and more, both for myself and others, is we live in busy times, changing times. There's a lot going on, and that's not to be full of woe. It's just acknowledging how things can be in a lot of people's lives. And what I'm noticing is people are wanting to receive, go into that deep sense of relaxation. So when you go for a sound bath, for example, excuse me, you're usually lying down, you're making yourself very comfortable, and then it's you're receiving. You're invited. I invite my participants to, if their mind wanders off, bringing it back, as we do in meditation, without judgment. And it's that act of receiving. You don't need to do anything, and also it's kind of changing the brainwaves. It connects the two hemispheres of the brain. I mean, there are obviously overlaps with meditation. It's taking you from the beta brainwaves, which we need to function in life and get on and do things. But if we spend too much time in that, obviously that's not great. So you're bringing down to the alpha theta brainwaves, which really is that sense of deep relaxation, but also connection, so that when we're in that kind of brainwave state, we're more likely to receive, downloads, inspired inner voice stuff.
Yes.
So that answers your question very.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, absolutely. And would you say that it's better to have a sound bath as a group of people rather than just individually? Do you get more from it if you're a group because there's more vibration?
That's an interesting question. I think both are beneficial for different reasons. I think the collectiveness. I mean, I did a sound bath last night, actually, guided one. So I start with a meditation. So I do incorporate meditation.
Yeah.
Locally, actually, but just down the road. And there is something about the coming together of people, like-minded people. There is certainly that energy of all being there together, that supportive energy of any group, right? Of like-minded people. And obviously that you're receiving that all together. So I do think that is very powerful. I think the experience of one-to-one is different. You might be going with your, a specific intention, and the sound healer can direct, and this is focusing your attention. So I guess it would be, I would liken it, not exactly, but to the difference between, like, having group therapy and individual therapy. It's just different.
Yeah, the intention behind it.
Yeah, and obviously when you're one-to-one, that it's very specifically for you.
Yes.
And I would say, it's like, again, with many things in life, be it meditation or sound or anything we do, when we do the work on ourselves, even if we don't do it in a group, we're doing it on ourselves, that does resonate out into our families, our friends, everyone we come into contact with. And so we're either making sound or we're making noise, really. Yes. So the difference between gossiping and, giving a genuine compliment, the resonance is different. The whole universe is vibrating. Everything, nothing is in rest state. And so we're either feeding into that, it's kind of connected to manifestation and all of that. We're either feeding into that higher vibrational frequency that is going to kind of elevate all consciousness of all beings, or we're contributing in the other way. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back again, doesn't it, to the fact that we're all energy, we're all connected, and it ripples out. And like you say, if you are working on yourself, then that ripples through to your friends and family around you, which then I guess would ripple out to them. And it just kind of keeps on going, doesn't it? It's lovely. I must admit, I have witnessed for myself being, so I'm a yoga teacher as well, and guiding people through yoga practice and maybe finishing with Om at the end, or some sort of meditation. You can feel the energy in the room rising, without doing too much, but like you say, like-minded people, and then everyone goes off and spreads that nice calm through their day into everybody else's day as well. Absolutely. I always start with the R Om. The frequency of R is very high frequency, like upper chakra frequency. Yeah. And then the Om, and when we get to that point where we're closing the mouth and the Om, that frequency, why humming is so powerful, is that actually you're creating an inner chamber. You're closing your mouth, and that's resonating through your head and your whole body. Yeah. And it's interesting. We're kind of talking about this sense of the collective versus the individual, and again, it's so that is in itself so interconnected, because I often talk to my clients and friends and anyone who listens. Sorry, my arm went on there. That this whole thing. Sometimes people think that it's selfish to take time, and actually, and we should always be giving. And I personally don't agree with that. I don't feel that we can pour from an empty vessel. And so actually when it's about reframing that. And if you need time on your own, that you take that time. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that whole, self-care is quite old-fashioned, isn't it? And
Now we know better. We've learned there are studies and science behind it to show that, you know, you're absolutely right. You need to take the time for you. You need to fill your cup up in whatever way that works. Like for me personally, I like being outside. I like being barefoot. I like being in nature, and I actually like being by myself. I'm quite a solitude person for recharging my batteries.
Me too.
Whereas my husband recharges his batteries amongst other people. He likes that buzz and that energy, and that helps him. But yeah, definitely, I think our learning now, we know more. We know that we need to look after ourselves. And for me, that's why I like wellness, because when people talk about wellness, they always go, oh yeah, you know, you've got to be skinny and you've got to be really fit. And actually, for me, that's not really what wellness is. Wellness is getting really good sleep, being really hydrated. Like, yes, we want to be fit and healthy and fueling our bodies well, but it's not about aesthetics. It's not about how, you know, somebody telling us we've got to look, or it's so wide ranging, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think for some people it may be, and that's their journey, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
And other people, it's about finding our own voice with that. For me, it was, you know, I had coming to coaching, I had a massive wake-up call, was a life shock.
Right.
And that's what's brought me on this journey of, you know, life shocks as opportunities for transformation. You know, they're really portals for transformation and awakening. And that kind of also feeds into the sense of being meant for more, which is another part of my message, which is really that when we connect on soul level, we really then begin to acknowledge that we are meant for more. If we, you know, it's all about choice.
Yes.
And for me, what happened with the life shock is that, you know, if we're not listening to the prompts of the universe, if we're not, you know, listening, then often a big life shock will come in our way. So it's really all about that going back to center. And to continue from what you were saying, nature was a huge part of that for me. I spent a huge amount of time, took some time off work because I was having multiple surgeries. So I spent loads of time in nature, either sitting in the garden, doing a little bit of gardening when I could, when I was recovering from surgery, you know, as I was recovering more, going on longer and longer walks. And back to frequency is that, you know, you think of the resonance of the earth, which is like almost 8 hertz. And that's a very similar wavelength, as I understand it, to like theta. And when we're out in nature, yes, there's the aromas, yes, there's the views often, but we're actually, it's tuning us back to our, you know, healthy state of ourselves.
Yeah.
So I know I've said quite a lot in that, but yeah, I think that all of these experiences bring us back to that sense that it is what is our resonance in a vibration? What are we drawn to? What is our soul's essence calling us towards to express in this world?
Yeah.
And it's very different from person to person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And chapter to chapter of our lives. And for me, which I did get out of alignment very much, allowed myself to get stressed, did have some bereavements in my life in the lead up to that. And then, you know, if we get out of alignment, then we're more likely to get in, you know, unwell or just out of touch with who we are. And that's why I'm so passionate really about that sense of it starts with ourselves. It starts actually with our hearts.
Yes.
Connecting deeply to the wisdom of our hearts.
Yeah.
Which actually has got a lot more wisdom than our brains and our thoughts.
I agree. Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? So I know you were saying just a moment ago that we're all on our own journey. So if people aren't quite up to speed to this bit at the moment, that's fine, because they'll get there when they need to or they're ready. But I think it's really important to have these conversations and put it out there in the world, because you don't know who's going to listen, and it might be just what they need to hear at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting idea is that we're exactly where we're meant to be, really, and we can all get caught up in the comparisonitis or I should, or shoulding ourselves, and all of that. And just noticing, for me, it's about the programming, the programming, the influencing, and recognizing that for what it is, that when we're very young to, for all our lives, advertising, different thing, schooling, I'm not saying this is negative at all. It's not. It's a mixed bag. And yet, we hear those different thought patterns, and when we recognize them as just thoughts, part of the, the programming that we've received till date, then we can kind of release that a little bit more. This is what helps with our mindset, I believe. And that returning back to ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah.
So
if someone's listening to us chatting today and they think, oh my God, this is fascinating, I'd love to find my soul purpose, like, what's the very first step that you would advise somebody? Like, how can they start on that journey if they've not really experienced what we're talking about?
Okay. Get clear on what you don't want.
Okay.
Which might sound, so I'd say that's the, if you're getting spun out of like, oh my gosh, I don't know what, and I've been there, kind of like getting, oh gosh, I'm not sure what I want to be doing. And, I can be a little bit of a magpie sometimes. I have to rein that in. What do they call it? I can't think of the word for it right now, but that shiny object.
Yes.
Shiny objects. And so if you find yourself in that place, and if there's a little bit of anxiety, just kind of writing down, journaling, getting clear on what is it I don't want. And safeguarding that. Why is that important? Because if we safeguard it as we go then forward in our journey, we've not got to necessarily unpick things. Does that make sense? So for me, when I was unwell, I took time out, and I got to a place where I thought I knew I didn't want to work for someone else, and that's what led me to be a solopreneur. So getting just clear on that one thing. I'd worked companies and people for many years, and that's perfectly fine, and that was right for me at that time. Safeguarding that allows you, if you can, and if you don't, that's fine, allows the freedom. And then the next thing I would say would be, the poem by Lao Tzu comes to my mind, and it always does, one of my favorite poems. It says, the more we leave our center, the less we learn. So it's about coming back to yourself, doing some form of practice. It might be yoga, it may be sound, it may be meditation, may be nature, it may be a combination of all those things. Coming back to groundedness and yourself. Tuning in with your heart, especially, which can sound very, and I don't mean in a Valentine's kind of way. I'm talking about, even placing your hand over your heart center. Energy flows where attention goes. So you place your hand, taking a few deeper breaths into your heart, because scientifically now we know what the mystics spoke about, which is the heart has wisdom. It communicates more with the brain, and the brain communicates with the heart. So when we drop down, that's where the wisdom comes from.
Amazing. And so exciting to know that if there's something in your life that you're not that happy with, you do actually have the power to change it. You can take small steps, you can build something new and leave that old behind. That's amazing, isn't it? I love that.
I love that you said that, because that is so important. It's the little steps that, day by day, hour by hour. And if we take a couple of steps back, we will, so what? But it's that kind of moving ever forward. And also, as we've been talking, what's come up, which I think is perfect divinity, which it is all inside of us. And that doesn't mean to say we need mentors, teachers, coaches, all of these things, family members, community, all are hugely beneficial, important, beautiful to receive and give to. And yet, as well, knowing that it's all inside us. You have your breath. We all have our breath. We can return to the breath. We all have a heart. We can turn to a heart. We all have feet. We can put them on the ground. We all have a voice. We can vocally tone just an om to, retune the inner orchestra.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it can be that simple. It doesn't have to be really complicated.
You
can take it right back, like you say. You can just breathe. You can't breathe wrong. Your body knows how to do it already.
Exactly. We do. We can overcomplicate, and that can be fun sometimes. but you're right. It's like returning to the basics. And when I reflect on the fact that we are part of, the whole, and within us we have everything we need, isn't that beautiful, really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting, isn't it?
It's exciting because if you think, we have everything we need in order to get into the right equilibrium when we're stressed, to receive the downloads from the universe. And I don't mean downloads like you're going to become a channel necessarily. I literally mean, okay, what's my next step?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
That it's all here.
Yeah.
And what's also beautiful, so I think it's kind of coming full circle, because it's that individual and the collective.
Yeah.
We have people around us, should we wish, to connect to gain insight from and help from. A yoga teacher, going to yoga class, or so it's all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me, I like to, wherever I do yoga, I always share with the people that I'm guiding, is the one thing I want them to remember is that it's their practice, but it actually goes through everything. Like, everything we're doing, it's just a practice. We don't want to ever reach perfection. I don't even know what perfection is, but everything we do is practicing, and every day should be completely different. I think it's quite exciting that we can wake up and be like, right, this is a brand new shiny day. How is it going to pan out? I don't know. And that's amazing.
Absolutely. And it's moving away. It's back to the mindfulness, because, I think, I do mindfulness meditation. That it's back to the principles that underpin mindfulness, which is about trust, non-striving, kindness towards ourselves, and there are many different ones, but it is about that. The idea of perfection, it's a no-win, isn't it? Because what's perfection to one isn't to another. It's not a great thing to strive towards.
No, absolutely. And it's all just our perspective on what we're looking at, isn't it? So everybody's is always going to be different. Yeah.
And for me, the last thing I'll say about that is when becoming unwell, that's one thing, a big lesson I learned is when I feel myself in striving mode. I've got to do this, I've got to, I'm not saying I never fall into those traps, we all do, but more often than not going, okay, just stop for a minute. Is that true?
Yes.
Is it true? Is it really true? Do I have to do everything on my list today?
Yeah.
And then and not getting into that place where it's compromising our health.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point. Oh my goodness, the time has whizzed past. I have loved talking to you, Liz.
I'm a talker.
I could literally talk to you all day. Is there anything that you would like to tell everyone? Like, is there any offers or workshops coming up, or where can people find you if they want to find you?
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm lizkeates.com. So that's Keates, Kates. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I do, if you're local in, might not be, East Sussex, I do sound baths. I do a lot of stuff online as well. I do a one-to-one coaching. So just reach out. I'd love to hear from you, even if you've got a question about anything I've said today.
Fabulous.
Reach out.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Liz, for being my guest. Thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast today. All of the things that we've talked about, all the links, I will make sure that they're in the show notes. And thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it, Kim. Thank you. I'd love watching your smiling face while I'm talking. That's really put me at ease, and it's been really lovely. Thank you
good.
so
I'm
much
pleased.
for inviting me.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And I will speak to you all in the next podcast.